Formula One is set to have a new leader before the start of next season, and it looks like it's going to be a self-confessed Ferrari man. Stefano Domenicali is expected to replace Chase Carey as F1 CEO, bringing the former Ferrari team boss's exile from F1 to an end after more than 6 years. "I will always be a Ferrari man," Domenicali said earlier this year in an official F1 podcast appearance. So how will he stop people from believing it will impact his return? What's the reality of Domenicali taking charge of F1, and what kind of leader will he be? Before we go any further, remember to subscribe to the race if you haven't already and you like people who haven't previously been employed by Ferrari. You can question our intelligence, but never our allegiance. What's going on? Chase Carey succeeded Bernie Ecclestone in the dual role of CEO and chairman following Liberty Media's completed takeover of F1 in early 2017. The mustachioed American has been expected to vacate the role for a while now, and Domenicali is poised to agree a deal to replace him next year. Carey will remain involved in F1 in some capacity, and his parting gift to Domenicali is handing over a very different championship to the one he inherited from Ecclestone, with all 10 teams signed up to better commercial terms, a first ever budget cap next year, and then new technical rules in 2022. For Domenicali, it will be an unexpected return to Formula One after an absence of more than 6 years. He started his Ferrari career in 1991 and resigned in 2014 after refusing to follow President Luca de Montezemelo's command to sack the head of the engine department in response to a miserable start to the V6 turbo hybrid era. Domenicali's role will put him back in partnership with Ross Brawn, who was Ferrari's technical director during Domenicali's sporting director stint and is now F1's managing director of motorsports. The ex-Ferrari duo will also work alongside their former boss Jean Todt in the Frenchman's final year of his term as FIA president before Todt steps down. But we'll come to the Ferrari band getting back together to run Formula One shortly. What kind of leader is Domenicali? Since leaving F1, Domenicali has worked at Audi and presently Lamborghini alongside his role as president of the FIA Single-Seater Commission. He is a supremely nice guy, intelligent, highly principled, and has a proven track record of impeccable management. But he's not the traditional sort of hard-headed tough bruiser that might be associated with the top job in F1. There's often plenty of blood and guts involved in the sports negotiations, and his diplomatic charm may fall short against the sort of ruthless pursuit of competitive self-interest that prevails in this environment. But he has political savvy of his own and has honed his business skills in the automotive world, and in any case he has alongside him his old boss Brawn, who can be relied upon to wade through such battlefields with armour plating. Domenicali was the obvious in-house choice to take over the team principal role at Ferrari and kept the ship steady enough for it to take a second consecutive World Constructors title in 2008, the team's most recent success. His people skills are considerable and he inspires affection as well as respect from those who work for him, but as someone who had grown within the organisation and had been appointed by de Montezemolo as a lieutenant, he was not empowered in the way that hired guns Brawn and Todt had been, nor was he the type of personality that could have assumed such a domineering role. Why he's different to what came before. Domenicali's appointment is a commitment to a different style of management from Liberty Media and a step towards a people person rather than a businessman. That's not to say Carey did not get results or made life difficult for those beneath him, but he was neither a racing man nor a popular paddock man prior to his arrival. Carey was there as a non-F1 person to offer a different take, straddling the business world and the paddock. Sometimes he had an objective view free from the influence of a life in F1's bubble, sometimes he was just too naive or too detached from what the teams needed or wanted. There will now be a stronger connection to those teams, reinforced with the knowledge that ultimate power and control does lie with the decision makers, so Domenicali and Brawn can pull rank if needed. Having two racing people running F1 day to day does shift the disconnect further up the chain. Domenicali will be a Liberty appointment rather than a Liberty man like Carey was, and that opens a gap between the very top of Liberty and the people they have running Formula One. But a stronger grip on day-to-day management and core issues is likely to be a net win, even if it means making more of an effort to report back to the big bosses, because that relationship isn't quite the same. It remains to be seen if Brawn's role is going to change, but if he plays bad cop to Domenicali's smiling, diplomatic good cop, F1 could have a very effective leadership duo on its hands. Just like with the top personnel in an F1 team, moulding the roles around the strengths of the individuals is better than putting them into organisational boxes. What about being a Ferrari man? In his F1 podcast appearance earlier this year, Domenicali's affection for his long-time employer Ferrari was evident. That's no surprise given he spent 23 years working in almost every department from business administration to sponsorship to human resources to running the entire F1 operation. Domenicali admitted he was uncomfortable with the idea of taking over another role in F1, but that was in relation to joining another team. Running the championship itself is slightly different, even though accusations of favouritism will still be rife. Being a man of principle should help. The upstanding behaviour around his Ferrari exit, from sacrificing his own position rather than wielding the axe, to shaking hands with a 1,000 strong workforce on his final day, is a notable example. Good morals are a decent foundation to avoid collapsing under a conflict of interest, as are a passion for racing, enthusiasm to help F1 improve, and the skill set required to contribute to that process. In theory, there should be no opposition from the teams. When speculation linked Mercedes boss Toto Wolff and his Red Bull counterpart Christian Horner to replacing Carey, a 2-year grace period was agreed to stop anybody jumping from running a team to taking a leadership role within Formula 1. Given Domenicali left Ferrari in 2014, he comfortably satisfies that requirement. But F1's political battles have always had a personal or professional subplot of some kind, so it would be naive to assume all is well. It's unfortunate that Domenicali's attributes as a person, as a fan of F1, and an experienced team head turned automotive businessman will disappear into a sea of red in the eyes of some, because this should be a very positive appointment. He will most certainly have a clear vision of how F1 should develop and adapt to its environment, and he will endeavour to link up the Liberty and F1 parts of the role. He just might require a bit of muscle to back him up at crucial moments. What do you think of Domenicali being the new face of Formula 1, and how do you rate F1's leadership in the Liberty Media era versus what came before under Bernie Ecclestone? Let us know in the comments below, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and think about subscribing if you haven't already for future videos on the biggest talking points in Formula 1 and much more.